Hello everyone, my dear students. Today I'm going to discuss with you about the novel To Sir with Love, which is written by E.R.Breathwaite. Already this has been taught in the classroom, but I'm doing this attempt for the students, those who were not present in the classroom when I taught this novel. Actually, that's why this is effort I'm taking for them who could not attend the classes due to some unavoidable circumstances. So the novel To Sir with Love is written by E.R. Breathwaite. So in this novel particularly, a book particularly centers on a teacher who takes his occupation as sheer reality, and he has shown his struggle on developing a relationship with his rude, disobedient, and hostile students. In fact, it is necessarily not the fault of the students, as they expected Braithwaite to be in the same manner as their previous teachers were. So, particularly, this is a novel about relationship between teacher and students. The students definitely who were not sophisticated, as I mentioned earlier, they were rude, disobedient, and hostile. So, this is one part we should take in our mind. Particularly, I am going to focus about the themes in this novel, and the most prevalent theme in this novel is racism. The first aspect of racism is explicit prejudice. The prejudice can be depicted through the scene which took place on the bus from Aldgate to Greenslade. Greenslade is a school where E.R. Breathwaite would teach. So the woman's refusal to sit with Breathwaite shows the seriousness and intensity of the problem of racism in the 1950s in London. Not all of the Londoners were racial towards Braithwaite or all the colored people, as it could be seen in the conductor's supportiveness of Braithwaite and his ever-growing irritation of the lady who continued to show expressions of ignorance towards the situation. The lady was not ready to sit with Braithwaite because he was colored. Colored means, you can say, a black person, and the people were not ready to treat the black people with equality. Through Braithwaite's soliloquy, it implicitly implies that the higher social classes were more corrupted by society and discourteous to the colored people than the middle or the lower class people. This can be shown through the sentences. They were a part of the world's greatest cities and at the same time common as hayseeds and courteous defense to a slim, smartly dressed woman. So in this connection, you can see the courteousness, the kindness was not for the colored people or the black people on the part of the white people in London. So this is the first aspect we come across of the racism. Racism in Marathi, I would like to clarify, that is a vanshbhed, or that is in another words I can say racial discrimination. So another aspect of racism prevalent in the novel is the use of language, used as a powerful weapon to express racism. So this can be evident through the citations which were black bastard. This is an abuse used by white people for the black people. Black bastard and blackie teacher were intended to be provoking. Denham, who cited the slur black bastard, was only said to gain attention from his peers, and by standing up to the teacher, it would give him the characteristics of a leader and who was brave and stood up for what he believed in. The following sentence, I quote, "He looked like he wanted a response," shows that the reasoning for his side was not for true intentionality or taunt, but to make the atmosphere of the class heated and to make Braithwaite reason from his occupation and gird of his lines as Weston described. So the people, or the particularly the students, were using abusive language towards Braithwaite as he was working there as a teacher, and the real intention behind using such language was to make Braithwaite resign from his service as the earlier teachers were doing. So, implicit acts of racism can be noted through two significant events and incidents, being the event at Poison d'Or, that is the name of the restaurant, Poison d'Or, and the other being the job interview for Braithwaite. These are the two incidents faced by Braithwaite that clearly show the racial discrimination. One is the scene from that restaurant called Poison d'Or, and another incident is related to his job interview as an engineer. In the restaurant incident, first of all, I would like to explain what happened in the restaurant. There, the mistreatment is given to Braithwaite in that restaurant by the waiter by dropping soup and not on Gillian, and the appearance of a smirk across the waiter's mouth shows the disrespect and intentionality of the act. So, dropping of the soup was an intentional act by the waiter who wanted to disrespect Braithwaite because he was black, because he was colored. So, this incident clears the attitude of the white people towards the black, towards the colored people. He was waiter, but he did not care about his job there. He was not worried about his job, but he wanted to show his white superiority at the cost of losing his job. So this is one incident. You can see how the black people, colored people were treated by the white people. So as Braithwaite described it in this novel, that other customers were looking at the incident but refused to stand up to the waiter. Other people were not standing up to the waiter, who had obviously attempted a wrongdoing. The waiter's courage as to put his job on the particular situation on the line adds to the gravity, seriousness of the situation, how serious the situation was in the interview. So we come to the second incident where Braithwaite went for the interview as an engineer. So the recruiters asking of irrelevant questions instead of getting to the point, and the response, some of the supervisors working here are people we know and they don't like to be bossed by another man of color. So they were not ready to accept the colored man as their boss, and therefore they were asking irrelevant questions, and instead of getting to the point, they were diverting the interview, and they were doing this only because Braithwaite was colored. So in other words, we can say we don't want blacks to control us. This was the motto of the white people. So they don't want the blacks to control them. So this is the second incident that shows clear-cut racism in this novel. So Braithwaite, who experiences racism implicitly, explicitly, and verbally, so in all ways he suffered there because of his color, implicitly, explicitly, verbally, and he is indignant. This can be noted in his soliloquy. I quote, what a superior bitch, I unquote. So this is a quotation by Braithwaite in his soliloquy. He uttered this, and second quotation I quote: "I was always subject to explosive anger, but for years I have been making a determined attempt to exercise control of my temper." So Braithwaite, looking at this injustice, he would lose his temper at the previous moments, but now he has stopped doing that. So he uttered what a superior bitch at the occasion when the lady refused to sit next to him. So his indignation was in this manner expressed by him. So, however, in later pages of the story, the acts of racism he endures are converted from anger to hurt. So he endured all these incidents, but his anger was now converting to hurt. He was getting hurted. So this can be seen in the scene where the class was discussing on whether Potter should fret for his action, disrespecting and cursing at a teacher. One of the students, that is Potter, how he was disrespecting and cursing at the teacher. So Braithwaite said Potter should definitely ask for forgiveness, whilst the rest of the class said the Potter was right in cursing, as because of the teacher, uh, Buckley got hurt. So this is another incident that students were going on one way and the Braithwaite was going on another way. So they were not ready to follow Braithwaite. So Sales, a student in Braithwaite's class, says, I quote, "Easy for you to say, sir, you have never experienced a time where someone pushed you around." I unquote. So this shows the students in his class were saying that it is easy for you because you might not have gone through this situation. And Braithwaite responds to Sills. As a response, Braithwaite says, I quote, "I have been pushed around. I have been hurt, really hurt. I sometimes awoke to painful, quick remembering." So Braithwaite says that it is not happening only with you. I have also suffered. I have also gone through these kind of situations. I have been hurt, really hurt. This shows Braithwaite's conversion from anger to hurt. So this implies that all the acts in which he had easily ignored or overlooked at the time struck a shock to him in the long run unnoticed. So Braithwaite also is physically hurt in one scene, not only mentally but physically also. He has been hurted where he was violently sick after the interview, and this could be seen in the lines, I quote, "I was violently sick." So as a result of the interviews, they were not satisfactory, they were irrelevant, they were not on the point, and as a result of that, Braithwaite was seriously violently sick. This is the physical, you can say, hurting of the Braithwaite. So this may suggest either he was struck by the racial attitudes of the staff of that his stay in cosmopolitan London as an unemployed, and he could not stretch for a further period of time as he was running out of money to survive. This was the question of surviving. He was not getting money. He was just facing interviews, and there was no another way to survive in the cosmopolitan city like London. And only he could not get job because of his color, and this was the serious issue in the London city of 1950s. So not only Braithwaite was hurt by racism directed towards him in the Poisson d'Or, that is restaurant incident. So Gillian was angered and could not dare to watch his partner or love experience indirected and implicit racism. So Gillian was, a girlfriend of Braithwaite, who later on got engaged with her. This could be seen in the lines, "Let's go, Rick." So this is the statement of Gillian. who noticed that incident of insult of Braithwaite in that restaurant by waiter by dropping the soup. So she says, I quote, let's go, Rick, I unquote. So in the bus incident also, where two women made remarks on three girls, Moira, Pamela, and Barbara. They three girls were all young and they were standing with black man, that is Braithwaite. So all three girls except Braithwaite responded, and Pamela Dare stood up for Braithwaite. Her good so doing is noticeable here. uh, that shows her qualities, but enhanced by Pamela Dare's love interest for Braithwaite. So Pamela had love interest for Braithwaite instead of being black. So the evidence that Pamela Dare had a crush on Braithwaite could seen in the sentence. I quote, when Gillian came, all the girls were enthusiastic, talking about her clothes except Pamela. I unquote. So Pamela was not ready to talk with Gillian when other girls were talking with her. That shows that Pamela had crush on Braithwaite and she was in love with Braithwaite. So this means she did not like Braithwaite going out with Gillian. So this is one another incident in the bus where two white women were talking or taunting to three girls standing nearby the black man. So this is one another incident, but as I have said earlier, all the white people were not of that kind. So these three girls were somewhat liberal, and as I told, one of them was having crush on Braithwaite. So in the end of the story, some of the racially abusive people towards Braithwaite's color changed. So at the end of the novel, we come to know that some of the people who were racial towards Braithwaite in the beginning of the novel, they were not same at the end of the novel. So they were totally changed and started getting to know him better and became friendlier with Braithwaite. So this was the change from beginning to the end of the novel. So the best examples of these people are Denham and Weston. Since Denham ceded to Braithwaite, as I said earlier, there was abusive language used by some people towards the colored people, and one of them was Denham. Denham once cited black bastard. He said black bastard to Braithwaite, so it makes him a racist, and he becomes racist. But in the last chapter of the story, where Moira indirectly says that we know it could not be easy for you to deal with some of us, particularly Denham. So Denham was totally changed at the end of the novel, and he was having some kind of respect, sympathy, and friendliness with Braithwaite. So Denham blushes, showing that Braithwaite changed his rebellious attitude. Braithwaite's thoughts, I quote, someday Denham may be a dependable and hardworking man working HM overseas, I quote unquote, shows the high expectations he has for Denham. As Braithwaite believes he changed and he had some inner vivacious qualities embedded in him. In Weston's case, this is the second case of the Weston, one of the characters in this novel. The offering of cigarette shows that they were ready to make amends and to put all the bad events which took place in the last term aside and commence a new fresh beginning. So Weston also was totally changed. Now he was offering cigarette to Braithwaite, means they were in the same line. They were not following racism. Now they were ready to change their attitude towards the colored people. So racism has not only had bad effects on the lives of the people discussed in the story, it is because of racism Braithwaite landed the job as a teacher and was able to transform the lives of the students who were free disciples into people who could function and live in the world without conflict or disagreement. Braithwaite knew that school book teaching could not be related, and with no relation to their lives, it was useless. So he discussed with them freely about disclosed topics like relationships, and through the ignorance of the students turns towards him and the careful teachings and his knowledge of knowing their background, that they were students who were poor, were surrounded by social vermin, prostitutes and bad influences, and went to bed sometimes hungry, he was able to win the hearts of all the students. So this is the overall picture that Braithwaite came to that school where the poor people were learning. They were not sophisticated, and in this way he preferred to teach them not only the bookish knowledge but beyond the books, something beyond the book. So he disclosed the topics like relationships with them, and he preferred to give them careful teaching, and through his teaching he tried to bring some changes in those students. The students were very poor, they were under the bad influences, bad surroundings, and sometimes they were even not getting enough food and they would go to bed hungry. So in this manner Braithwaite created some close relationship with them, and he reached up to the hearts of the students successfully. So the sentence I quote, some of them grew strong within, they are all now willing to learn, they may turn out to be decent folk, I unquote. So this is the quotation I'd like to take here, that Braithwaite uttered at the end, because he was hopeful about the students, and he says that now the attitude of the student was totally changed and they were now ready to learn. They may turn out to be decent folk, sophisticated folks, people, citizens of the London. He was hopeful about the students. It shows how extensively Braithwaite evolved their character, and this sets in contrast to Western's opinion about them blithe spirits. So in short, I would like to say that so racism was regarded as a significant and very present issue in the 1950s that it is today in London. So racism took place everywhere. This restricted careers and destroyed dreams of the colored people living in the city of London. So To Serve with Love is an autobiographical text, so which is truly reflecting on the racial atmosphere of cosmopolitan London. So cosmopolitan means Rajdhani. So London is a cosmopolitan city of England. So in this connection, I would like to say how badly the black people were suffering from racism in the then London of 1950s. So this is the novel truly is based on Braithwaite's real experiences after World War II, where during the World War II he was working as an engineer in Royal Air Force of London. So in this way he was totally getting job during the World War II, but after the World War he became jobless. He was not able to get job after World War II, and after facing so many interviews, he at last chose the job of teacher at Greenslade School in London. So in this connection, this shows how Braithwaite accidentally came into the profession of teaching, and the school was not of the sophisticated students. The school was of the disadvantaged poor students, mannerless students. So they were overaged students, and the headmaster also was very kind person, and he first of all instructed Braithwaite to not give any kind of punishment to the students, but without giving punishment to the students he had to teach them. This was a Herculean task, a great responsibility, and Braithwaite successfully accepted the challenge of improving the students, and At last, he became successful. So, the book was firstly published in 1959, and in this connection, he has shared his experiences in real life, and the book covers the tenures of 8 years. So, there are total 22 chapters in this book. So, thank you, friends, for listening me carefully, and don't forget to give your valuable comments.